What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dorian Show. There's something been on my mind lately. I just want to ask you guys if you guys ever wanted to start your own business. Because I've thought about it before. I'm like, should I start my own business or should I just invest in the stock market, mainly the S&P 500? And I don't know. I think I've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube recently about people are like, hey, you should start your own business. That's the number one way to gain wealth, which is true. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of people don't know about all the work it will take that requires you to put into the business before you could even be successful. I think a lot of people start off a business and in the beginning, you're just not even making money. You're working for free. And then maybe in a couple years, you'll start to make a decent amount of money. And then a small percentage of those businesses will go on and make a lot of money. And I just don't think I have what it takes, to be honest. I feel like stocks are just so much better for the everyday person. You know what I mean? You literally don't need to worry about it. You don't need to check in on it. You don't need to do extra work for it. I mean, if you buy individual stocks, then yes, it requires a little bit more work. But if you buy the S&P 500, you're literally owning the 500 biggest companies. At the top, they have the smartest guy in the CEO seat for most of the time. And they run the whole business for you. And sure, your returns aren't that great, but I think the S&P is returning an average of 8% a year. And I think the last 2 years, it went up 50%, which is insane. The value for your money is insane, and you're doing no work. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm like everybody else. I'm still tempted to buy businesses once in a while. I mean, I don't even know if I can afford it, but I always think about should I run my own business? Should I invest in a business in hopes of getting a higher income? And I gotta say, every time I go into a Valvoline, those they're kind of like a Jiffy Lube, I guess. That's a bad start already, right? Because everybody think of Jiffy Lube when they think about oil changes, express oil changes. But I go to Valvoline. I've been going there for a couple years now, and every time I get in there, I'm like, I want to get in on this. I want to invest in one. I want to have one. I want to franchise one. It seems like a pretty simple business, you know what I mean? You have a small property. Really, it's not that big of a property. It's you really just need to have maybe 2 lanes for a car to do their oil change. And you basically just do that. You do oil change, you do transmission changing, the transmission fluid, you do tire rotations, maybe you add fluid, you change lights that went out, change filters. I mean, a lot of it is upselling, which is the only thing I don't like, but I get it. I never fault the workers that try it. I just tell them, I'm just here for the oil change. I might let them do my transmission fluid once I hit 100,000 on my Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. But anyway, every time I go in there, I'm like, this is a very simple, basic, easy to understand business. You know what I mean? Most of their money, I'm guessing it's from oil change. I used to think people would only go there to get oil changes on their older cars they don't care about. But I've seen people go there with Mercedes. I've seen people go in there with their Dodge Challenger. These aren't Lamborghinis, but you know what I mean? They are all types of cars. I've seen Lexus. I've seen Fiats. Are Fiats expensive? I don't know. But the point is, what I'm making is everybody, it's not just low income people. Everybody that could afford it might just want to go there for the convenience. And the prices aren't bad. It's way better than going to the dealership, so to speak. Especially now, because my dealer I live so far away from my dealer. Like before, I lived pretty far before too, but I was able to go during work, and my work office was near my dealership, so I could go and have them give me a oil change, and I just go to work. They at least drop me off from work to work, which is good. So, but it still takes like 3 hours to get an oil change at a Hyundai dealership. You know what I mean? And like a Valvoline makes this so much easier because there's one basically near everybody now, and which I guess is bad, right? If I wanted to start one, I would have to pick a location, build the building, build the infrastructure. That might be expensive. Maybe I could just buy one off someone, right? But more positives for Valorant. Like everybody goes there. It seems to always have a rotation of people coming in. The job seems pretty straightforward. You just everything's pretty standardized, right? Every time you do the oil change, most cars are pretty similar, right? It's hard to make a mistake, even though if you do, it's going to cost the company a lot of money, but they have insurance. It doesn't take a lot of people to work there, maybe like a handful of people. So I'm always interested. I go in there, I'm like, dang, dude, I should do this, but I don't know anything about oil change. I'm guessing like if I wanted to start one, I probably have to learn how to do all the stuff it requires to, do oil changes and stuff like that. But yeah, and I'm like, but then I start to think about the realities of what it takes to run a business. I'm like, okay, if someone doesn't come through for work, I would have to work there. And at this point in my life, I'm not willing to give up my job, my W-2, which is not a great paying job, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good where I could save money and live in West Hollywood by myself, in a 1-bedroom apartment with a parking spot, with enough money to spend on food and going out. I don't need to worry about money. You know what I mean? And I think it's a decent enough pay where I don't want to give it up. I'm so good at it at this point at my job. You know what I mean? It doesn't take me too much. It doesn't stress me out too much because I know I can handle it. It's easy for me now, and the pay is okay. I think a lot of people that are struggling with money will look at my W-2 and be like, "This is a really good paying job. Like, what are you talking about? You're doing great." But like a lot of people, like maybe in tech, will look at my salary and they're like, dude, they're so smart. But anyway, I don't want to be in a position. I want to be able to buy this business and have it run without requiring me to be there, which I think is going to be hard, right? Unless I buy an existing franchise for Valvoline right now, which is also weird. If someone has a Valvoline that's profitable and it's like doing well enough where they don't have to be there, why would they want to sell that business to me? You know what I mean? So like, even thinking that, I'm like, I'm probably going to have to start one, open a brand new one. I'm going to have to learn how to do everything, which is going to take time, either from my work right now or even my free time, and have to go through the hiring process, making sure everybody's good. Like I can't just not be there in the beginning. So that already makes it harder. Like I'm not willing to quit my job. But if there's an existing business and the price is right, like I'm willing to pay a premium in this hypothetical world I live in. And then there's also the startup cost. Like it's not cheap. I looked at their website for Valvoline. They say the initial startup cost for a new franchisee ranges from between $100,000 to $3 million, which is a pretty terrible and large range to give someone. And I'm assuming here in California, here in LA, West Hollywood area, it's probably closer to the $3 million range than the $100,000 range, right? And like the $100,000 range is basically where my own limit is. I can't afford to pay $3 million because I don't have it. I don't even have $1 million. I barely could afford this $100,000 if I want to invest in this. So then I was like, okay, if I can't buy this business, maybe I could buy their stock, right? If they are a good business, making a lot of money, the business is probably making money off of the franchisees. So maybe I just buy the stock instead. Obviously, there might not be as much upside as owning one of the franchises outright, but I could just go along for the ride. So I looked at the business, and it's actually a pretty good business. Like I'm just looking right here. Their operating profit margin is 33%. So that's really good. You know what I mean? Like they're making 33% off of the revenue, meaning every $100 someone spends, they're making like $33 on it, which is good. You know what I mean? And this is at the stock level, which means that the margins might be better on the level of the franchisees, which would make sense to me, right? Like, why would people? There has to be an upside on franchisees. So I'm thinking the franchisees were probably making at least a 33% operating margin, if not more, right? Than the stock and the company. $5 billion market cap. It's not tiny. But here's the thing, like the forward PE is where it gets me, right? The price to earnings ratio is 21 times, that's basically around, I'll take that back. A lot of tech companies are trading at 30 times plus price to earnings. And then Valvoline's paying 21 times. Not paying 21, they're 21 times their earnings, forward earnings. And when I see the number, I'm like, it's good, but like you're thinking it's going to keep growing its income, which it is. But am I willing to pay 21 times forward earnings when I could just buy the Google stock? You know what I mean? Every time I look at a different stock, I always come to a point of why don't I just buy Google? Like Google is so cheap right now, you know? And I get a lot of people are like saying, hey, these are different industries. Like Valvoline is like a service industry. Most people are going to always go to Valvoline to get their oil change. It's not something that you want to do yourself. I know a lot of people that do change their oil on their own, but like learning how to do it, dumping in the oil, all that stuff, it's just not worth the $120 that you might save every 3 months. You know, I think this is for most people, by the way. So I think it's going to continue to get its business. But then why would I put money into that when there's Google on this side? And their operating margin, let me tell you, is not as good as Valvoline, which is surprising, you know, Google. But they're a tech company, 30% operating margin, a little bit less than margin-wise, a little bit less than Valvoline, but they're only trading 18 times their forward PE. And I'm like, I get they're in different industries, but like, I'm like, why would you pick a service industry over Google, which is a tech industry? And Google has its hand on every segment. They basically dominate search and advertising online. They have YouTube, they have their cloud, which is not leading, but they're making a lot of money in cloud. They have Waymo self-driving. You know, and a lot of people say, hey, you know, AI is coming, AI is going to destroy search, blah, 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 which could be true, but I don't see that happening overnight. And the truth is, like, if Google just has so much money that they could get into new industries basically anytime they want. I think I just checked them. They have over $100 billion in cash and cash equivalents. So they have that much. They have over $100 billion that they could just buy up businesses. You know what I mean? Like, they'll never do this because it's not in their industry, but I'm like, if they ever wanted to get like a service industry, something people think is more reliable, like Valvoline, like they could just buy Valvoline. They have $100 billion in cash. Valvoline is like $5 billion for the whole market cap. So I'm just like, just for Google's ability to generate cash, the cash they have in hand, like I can't even consider buying Valvoline stock when Google stock is out there. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I own a lot of Google stock right now. I think Google makes up about 20-ish. I'll just say maybe like 20-ish% of my total portfolio, which is a lot. So the risk is high, but I'm like, dude, Google is, I don't know. I feel even if, so the government wants to break off Google's Chrome and from the rest of the company, I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen. But even if it does, I'm like, who cares, dude? Like any hit that Google takes, I want to buy more. I need to stop myself from not buying more Google, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to get wrecked. But even if the government says, hey, you guys got to break up into like 5 different companies, I would be buying more Google because each of their business segments is like, could work on their own, could succeed on their own, and could even probably do better and generate more money and value for investors. So that's just what I want to talk about. Like every time I'm like, hey, I want to get into business, I want to start a business, I think about like the initial cost is going to cost me, the time and effort is going to cost me to run it. I have to be successful at it. I need to hire, I need to fire people, I need to train people, I need to manage people. When I could just buy stocks and like not look at it, sure, the growth is not as good sometimes, but 8% a year in S&P is not bad. S&P is beating a lot of tech stocks in the past 5 years, I think, including Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. So maybe I'll just buy more S&Ps. So I get a diversified ownership of 500 companies ran by like the smartest people on the planet. You know what I mean? Of course, some of them are going to fail, but overall, I think these people are going to succeed. I should just buy that. And maybe 8% a year is not bad considering I don't need to do anything. I just give them my money and pay my taxes if I ever sell. So I don't know. I think businesses might be good for someone if you feel like you have an edge on something, or you think, or it's your passion, right? It has to be 2 things. You have an edge. For example, if you want to here's another business I think is, I'll be terrible at it, but I always wanted one. Like I want to own a coffee shop because I love going to coffee shops. I like sitting at the coffee shop. I like reading. I like writing. I like hanging out at coffee shops. But the truth is, the people that hang out at the coffee shops does not make the coffee shops any money, right? They're using your Wi-Fi for free. They buy a cup of coffee. Maybe it's $7 to $10. It's expensive, I know. But if they sit there for if they sit there for like 2 hours, you're losing money on that customer. And I don't have an edge on anybody else. Like I don't know how to run a coffee shop. I've never worked at a coffee shop. I have some ideas of what I want, what this dream scenario is, but I can't even begin to perceive how much revenue I'm going to make, how much operating profit I'm going to make, how much net income I'm going to make. Like I don't even have a clue. So it would be a bad idea for me to start a coffee shop, right? With no knowledge, no edge. That's terrible. And like, it's going to cost me a lot of money when I could just buy a Starbucks stock. Then I basically own a little piece of every Starbucks in the world. And I know Starbucks they're not doing as well right now, but they're still kind of expensive. In my opinion, I think they're trading like 21, 22 forward PE. And again, I'm like, why would I buy that if I could just buy Google, who could probably just buy Starbucks if they wanted to, or start their own Starbucks if they wanted to. They won't, but they can. So that's what I want to talk about is the business. It's not for me. I don't think I could ever start a business. I do have my own business. This is I don't even know if it's proprietorship. It's not making any money. It's just causing me issues. I need to like freaking just checking emails, checking notices of something that I don't even make money right now. It's just such a pain point that I'm like, I could just put more money in the stock market and it's going to pay off way more than this business that I'm doing, which I'm going to continue for another year. I'm going to see if it works out. The other thing I want to talk about is Microstrategy and their Bitcoin strategy. Bitcoin right now is over 100K, right? Let me see. I think it went up to like 110K at one point. Oh, as of I'm looking at this right now, it's under 100K. It's 99K, but I think it went as high as $104,000 of Bitcoin. And MicroStrategy stock is going way up because what they're doing is they're just buying a ton of Bitcoin. They're offering convertible bonds, meaning if the stock price ever hits a certain level, you could trade in your bond for a share of stock, which is good for the investor if you think the price of the stock's going to go up. And in return, MicroStrategy is able to borrow money selling these bonds at basically near 0%. So they're basically borrowing money for free, and they're using that money to buy Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor, their CEO, and a lot of people are thinking this is going to drive the price of Bitcoin up, and it's like a continuous flywheel, right? They buy more Bitcoin, Bitcoin goes up. Because Bitcoin goes up, they hold it, the price of their stock goes up, and then they just issue more convertible bonds. And the terrible thing is they're going to dilute people, but as long as they're shareholders, but as long as Bitcoin keeps going up, who cares if you're diluted, right? You know what I mean? Like as long as Bitcoin goes faster and higher than that, it'll be fine. And Michael Saylor is trying to say this is almost a risk-free for people buying their bonds, because on the downside, he says if they don't hit their price at the end of the term of the bond, they just give you your money back because they're borrowing at a 0% interest rate. And in order for them to do that, he's going to have to sell shares or sell his Bitcoin, there's a reverse flywheel there, but he doesn't think that's going to happen, or the likelihood of it is happening is going to be low, because his company MicroStrategy and their operations generates $500 million or something like that, or $1 billion a year. So I think they say that will give them a cushion to pay back some of their loans. But I mean, I think there is still an issue that people aren't understanding, like prices going up forever doesn't always happen. You know what I mean? Like what is MicroStrategy going to do? Like if they buy a certain amount of Bitcoin, like Bitcoin right now, I think they own 2% of Bitcoin, but what if they own 10% of Bitcoin or 20% of Bitcoin? I don't know how long that would take. I'm not an expert, but part of the value of Bitcoin is if everybody has access to it. If only a couple of people have access to Bitcoin, then it's like worth less, right? You want to be able to let a lot of people have access to gold. If one person owns all the gold, then it's worth nothing. So at a certain point, it could take years, obviously. 2% is not a lot, but after a while, like I don't know if they're going to have to either stop buying Bitcoin. If something happens in the stock market, or if there's a recession, people will sell, and people will sell their stock, people will sell their Bitcoin. And that will crash. And they think, they're like, well, if Bitcoin crashes, we'll just buy more. But I'm like, yeah, but people will sell your stock too. Like, where are you going to get this money from? Like, I don't think they telling people where the downside is. And if people buy their stock, which is 3 times its worth of Bitcoin, like you get wiped out pretty quick if anything happens with Bitcoin. That being said, I wish I owned more Bitcoin. Like I'm an idiot. I own a fraction of 1 Bitcoin. I don't even own 1 Bitcoin. You know what I mean? And I had the opportunity to buy it when I was fully aware of it at like $13,000, let's say. I don't know if it hit $6,000 at one point when I knew about it, which makes me want to, hurt myself even more. But, oh yeah, so I think during the pandemic, I was into it. So I mean, at one point for sure, it was like $16,000 or something like that, right? Oh, yeah. Dude, it hit like $10,000 at one point. March 2020. $7,000. I mean, that was when I was first aware of Bitcoin. I should have bought more, but I didn't really research it too much. But even when I was aware, I bought it first, bought a little bit at like 36,000, I bought a little bit at 27, and it got down to like 16,000. And I had the confidence that it's going to hit $100,000. I just didn't know how fast it was going to take. I didn't know it was going to be in 2024. I thought it was going to be probably closer to 2030. And I said to myself, sure, I think in the next couple of years it's going to 5x in price, but I don't want to miss out on other opportunities, right? Opportunity cost of the money I could invest in something else. So instead, I invested in like uranium, which did okay, but I did 5x my money, you know? And in my head, I was like, oh yeah, there's going to be a recession. It's going to hit $6,000 again. And then when it hits $6,000 a Bitcoin, I'm going to buy more. And I didn't, and I missed it. And it's kind of a lesson learned. You know what I mean? Like at the time, I was confident that it will hit $100,000 at some point in the next 5 years. But I can't say the same now. Like I don't know if Bitcoin will hit $2,000, $200,000 a coin. It can happen. I understand it can happen, but if you ask me today, the way things are, I don't know if it can happen without outside factors, right? And one of those includes if other companies, publicly traded companies, started buying Bitcoin. Michael Saylor said he gave a presentation to Microsoft Treasury. So if Microsoft started investing in Bitcoin, that's going to go up to 200K probably by not even by June of 2025. You know what I mean? Because if Microsoft said they're going to buy Bitcoin, a lot of other tech companies would be like, hey, maybe we should buy some too. Facebook, Google, Amazon. If they all start buying Bitcoin, Tesla, all these huge companies with a lot of money, with a lot of cash flow start buying Bitcoin, it's going to shoot it up because of supply and demand. I don't know if this is true, but like Trump's talking about buying Bitcoin for the country in their treasury, which I don't know why you would do that, because Bitcoin is basically a competitor for the US dollar. You know what I mean? So if the US started buying Bitcoin, that's going to bring it up. Other countries are going to probably buy it, not just El Salvador. And that could really hit Bitcoin up to like over $500,000 if all these things happen, right? Because people are like, now I need to get more, now I need to get more. And then I would just look like a big dummy. But as of right now, I don't see a lot of that happening. I don't understand why. I think the only reason why Trump will buy Bitcoin is he wants it to go all the way up, and then he's going to rug pull everybody by selling it and paying back all the debt that the U.S. owes. Or he might not. If it goes up so high, a lot of countries are buying it. Then I mean, that's actually scary. If all the countries start buying up, then why would they even want to buy the U.S. dollar? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Is it likely Microsoft will buy Bitcoin? Maybe. I don't know. I think if it takes one other big tech company to buy Bitcoin, it's off to the races. But before that happens, like, I don't know. If I was Google, do I want to risk? I mean, Google has $100 billion, so what is $20 billion for them to buy Bitcoin? But if I was Google, I was like, I want to hold on to this cash to run my core business or invest in things that will advance my business, make my business better. So yeah, I don't know if Google will do it. Maybe they should. Maybe they should just buy like $2 billion. And then if every tech company puts in like $2 to $5 billion and buying Bitcoin, like that could send it all the way up, you know? So maybe I just can't get myself to buy at $100 billion a coin right now. $100,000 a coin. I just can't. But maybe I'll look dumb again. Maybe in 2 years it'll be at $250,000 a Bitcoin, and I'm like, I should have done it. I'm a big dummy. I don't know. Anyway, I'll end it there. I kind of wanted to talk about the CEO of United Health. Is it United Health? Getting murdered, but I'll save that for another time. It's been 30 minutes. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. I have other videos on this channel where I just eat and talk about being fat. So that's it. Thank you guys for listening. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.